Well, we all learn for each other. I've always said it because, before I retired, I taught, and it's a two-way process.
Yeah.
It's very, very definitely a two-way process. And I've been extremely fortunate because of where I've learnt in the Midlands. I've had to pick up wherever classes there were and whoever would teach me. And I've always thought that I've benefited from all of them, even though their teaching styles may be very different. When I started out, it was extremely helpful to have, you've got to get this move right, and you've got before, but I can't stand being too rigid. And when you've got teachers who teach in a variety of styles, and this is the sort of thing you're asking, you've got to have some sort of uniformity or your students don't know where the hell they are. But you also have to have some flexibility so that people can, they can blossom and they can learn in many ways. You see, I've learned, and I know I'm going on a bit, but you're asking about how people learn and how people should teach. I enjoy some rigidity so I can get something right, but then I'm not the sort of person that, I'm not an instructor, I can't be dictated to, but I like to learn by blossoming out. So I think there's a lot of scope for teaching by lots of different methods.
No, I think
how you learn
depends
on you. Just a minute. Depends on you, but it also depends on what stage you're at.
Hello? Yeah, was that the end, Gina, or did you?
No, I'm pausing for breath. I'm pausing for breath.
Oh, you don't want to do that.
I will let my instructors and my betters inform me how I have to proceed.
Right. No, thank you for that, Gina. Hello. Is that Louis? I'm sorry, I don't know how the name is pronounced. Louis. Hello, Louis. Hello, Bealey. Where are you based, Louise? Is this your first time? Is this your first?
It's my second time. Yeah.
Nice to see you, sir. Right. I think we can all go home now because I think Gina's answered the first question quite comprehensively. And the question.
Sorry.
Yeah, sorry,
Robert,
John wants to. No, I'm joking, Gina. I'm very happy for your input. But John keeps raising his hand, and as does Sue. John first, if you don't.
Do you mind if I just want to? I'm going to quickly log off, go and get my device and log back on again because my internet's working all right, and I think I'll be better on 5G. So I'm just letting you know I'm going, and I'll be back.
Right.
I was going to respond to what was said. Sorry, I already forgotten the lady's name, but we discussed my age earlier, so I'll put it down to that. I think in terms of structure, the important thing for me is the class structure. So we do the same routine in the class, but the teaching itself to people depends very much on the individual. I think you need to tailor your teaching not to the individual person, because some people learn quickly, some people just don't get it and never will. I think just what I try to do is to work out first of all, what the person wants to get out of Tai Chi, because different people want different things, and then to respond to their learning. Most of the teaching that we do is one-to-one anyway. We do quite a bit of group stuff, but as far as the students are concerned, especially new ones, I say we because my senior students help me teach, as we I think discussed previously. But we tend to then work with the student and do what, you know, do what they can do what they want to do. Object getting them to the end of it, but I don't think just learning, you know, teaching somebody the form is really what you want to do. You want to teach them about Tai Chi, which is much bigger than that.
I think that's, I mean, that carries back to something that was either on the last American one or whatever, this thing about what are we actually teaching? Is Tai Chi just a series of pretty movements? Is it something for every part of your life? Is it somewhere in between? And I think I said in maybe in the American meeting, I think I said that as teachers, maybe that's one of our failings, that we concentrate, or not, sorry, I don't mean all of us, but I mean as a general observation, that teachers can concentrate too much on teaching the postures, the rhythm, the form, this stuff that we call Tai Chi, and we don't actually concentrate enough on teaching our students where Tai Chi can actually be beneficial in the real world. The actual question I asked was, should we standardize curriculum across instructors or encourage individual expression, consistency and authenticity, or modernization and personal teaching styles? And I realized when I was reading that earlier today that I probably should have written a lot more and explained what I meant, because I wasn't thinking in terms of should all Yang teachers teach this flavor of Yang? Should all Chen teachers teach this flavor of Chen? I was thinking more in terms of, like you've just said, John, where you've got senior students who can also teach. I was thinking within a club where you have, or an organization where you have multiple teachers. I mean, I know you, John, and you know I have had some experience with John Ding's organization. It's a shame I haven't got any of John's teachers, as far as I know, current teachers on this thing. It would be interesting to know if he or several of the other sort of instructors who do have bigger organizations, how what's the word I'm looking for, how or if they enforce, you know, if I do it exactly this way, all my instructors must do it exactly that way. So that was my original thing. But then when I was thinking about that, I realized the likelihood was that the majority of teachers who would attend were, like me, fairly small organizations. There's me, there's my wife, there's Doris, who's somebody that I've taught to be an instructor who teaches sort of 20 miles down the road from me, kind of thing. With Doris, I allow her a large degree of freedom in terms of how she structures her classes and what she teaches. So it's based, if you like, on my framework. It is not exactly the same as I teach. And that's what got me thinking about it. But because we are all individual teachers, I think maybe I should open that question up slightly and say, do you think there is any benefit or is there any harm when you bring your own personality not into the way you teach the form, which obviously you're going to do, but into the form itself, how you express it, how you teach it? Or is that inevitable? I'd welcome any thoughts. Yes, Louis.
I have very conflicting feelings about this, because I've been involved with some big organizations, and there is naturally the tendency to standardize, even when everybody recognizes that they lose quality, and they lose a lot, but it's a weight of the losses and benefits of the system. Because to have schools all around the world, at least 2 organizations that I know, everybody giving their flavor it becomes very, very difficult, especially because normally the big organizations are involved in ranking systems, and it's very difficult if there are no standards. How can you form judges? How can you form instructors? And how can you set up and feed a ranking system if you don't have a standard? There's no way you can keep that system. And if we're talking about organizations with more than 2,000 students in different countries, it becomes a problem. On the other side, I've been researching lately, and it's very interesting, this question that you brought in, how AI could be managed to help teachers, specifically in Tai Chi, because what I found in studies that I've looked around was there is a big percentage of drop-offs because of the space in between classes. People get lost, get demotivated, and in the first 6 to 1 year, they drop off. And that brings a peril to the schools, because the survival of the schools depends on the regularity, and you can, if you're losing students at that pace. And I was thinking, how could AI somehow bring the teacher with this particular knowledge and with this particular personality be brought into an application that could support the student in between classes. So it's very interesting, this challenge, because you want people today, I think, more than ever, because traditionally the student lived with the master, so there was a big contact all the time, and you learn what the master told you. So there was no way out. You lived in a village. It was the master that was there. You learn what he had to learn, and if you don't want that, you have to go to another village with what, and it was impractical. Today, in our modern times, that is not the reality. The reality is you have these pre-packages of classes in a very specific time schedule, and you don't see the teacher. I don't know if in the case of the instructors here, but for the most of the teachers that I know, they don't even talk with the students in between classes. So there is no guidance of any sort for any of the students to, in between the classes, to clear some doubts, to have some details, to get more than just the overall surface of the art. And as we know, art, it cannot be taught like that. It's too shallow. So I have very conflicting feelings about this subject, but I loved it.
Yes, Gina, you want me to come in?
Can I make a small comment? As I say, I'm at not a high level at all, but my working life, I've been a teacher, been science teacher. What I would say is, when people join classes for almost anything, what they're doing is they're experimenting. Can you hear me?
Yeah.
Yeah. What they're doing is they're experimenting, and they don't know quite what they're looking for, but they may be looking for joy, and they may be looking for pleasure. And if you've got that situation where somebody is beginning something, nowadays there are so many pleasurable things, sports, intellectual activities on offer, that people experiment, but they drop out. And this doesn't necessarily mean that their instructors have got it wrong. It often means that there's a lot on offer.
Good point. Sue wants to jump in, Gina, if you don't mind.
Yeah.
I have to work out how to work the device because it's different to the computer. So I'm searching for the unmute button. It's ridiculous, isn't it? You pay all this money for internet and it doesn't work. So you end up using 4G anyway. I just want to talk about a little bit. I think Gina's absolutely correct. And I also agree with Lewis. When we are part of a big organization, you are expected to do things the way they do. I was very lucky when I came into Tai Chi because I wasn't part of an organization and kind of learnt from Neil and worked my way up. And Neil kind of stepped back and left me to it. Also, I was doing two things, the Yang family Tai Chi and also the Qi Gong from two different teachers, instructors. So what I'm going to do is kind of address both of your questions as part of this, as I'm just made myself a couple of notes, but I can't see them now because they're on the computer. Should we standardise the curriculum across instructors and encourage that? I mean, to be fair, we can't. I don't think it's possible to standardise it 100% because of the different levels of student, the different ages of student, the how much they can actually do. For instance, I had a gentleman turn up to my class on Friday morning. He just walked in the door and asked if he could join. And he was a rather large gentleman, very out of breath, could hardly stand, well, he couldn't stand up for more than 2 to 3 minutes on his own without help. Now, for me to say, oh no, you're not welcome in this class would be demoralizing. He's come for help. His doctors told him to try Tai Chi and he walked through the door. So, you know, all I did was sat him down and I did Qi Gong exercises with him, and I left my other instructors and coaches to do the work. And I took him to the side and worked with him individually and explained to him afterwards. He could see what everybody else was doing, and he could see that there was no way that he would be able to do even just the first section, even a short form. It would be, if we were going to do Tai Chi, it would be just going through individual moves, maybe some cloud hands, you know, a little bit at a time. So then I said to him at the end, look, you know, I'm not saying you can't do Tai Chi. I'm just saying you're not at that level right now, or at least my style of Tai Chi. So let's do some work together doing Qi Gong. I invited him to my Zoom class, which is on a Thursday evening, which is Qi Gong, and he's going to come. And he also said, well, I think I'd rather have some one-to-one. He says, I don't, you know, until I've built myself up. And so I think, you know, we can work this at every single level. We can do one-to-ones if it's going to help that person to build up build up everything, you know, their emotional stability, you know, their health, being able to just move, and just sitting down doing very, very simple Qi Gong exercises was difficult. He could only do 1 or 2 of the 8 silken brocade, whereas normally you would do 8, you know, and I'm saying, well, don't worry about it. We'll just do 1 or 2, and then we'll move on, and take your time and don't rush. And I think it's really, really important to allow this to happen in classes. And it's not always, if I was there on my own with the rest of the class, it wouldn't have been possible. And I would have perhaps said to him, look, why don't you just stay and watch, and then I'll have a chat with you afterwards, in which case we would have come up with something else. But I think that kind of covers both questions, really, with the one-to-one. Sometimes people just need that. They need to build up that part of them that's happy to be in a group. You know, they need to have the strength so that they feel comfortable being able to practice with other people, and the confidence and everything else that goes with it. I think it's just so important. So that's just what I wanted to say, really.
Thank you, Sue.
Can
Louis, you've got your hand raised. Sorry, just before you speak, Louis, Gina, do you know how to use your system to raise your hand when you want to speak?
No.
Okay. In that case, after Louis has spoken, we will come to you. Louis.
I just wanted to add, I totally agreed. It comes down because the Tai Chi content is so wide that it comes down to really what are the expectations of the students when they enroll in the classes. Because I think anyone that is capable and knowledgeable to give Tai Chi classes has such a wide variety of tools and of improvements that he can bring to his students, that you really it's really up to what the student at any moment can do. I just finished I was doing a class. I was as a student. I was doing a class just an hour ago, and we were talking with the Chinese master exactly about that, because people feel demotivated because they don't see much progress. It takes too long to see development, and they go down and then they come up and they try to do the exercise on their own and all of that. But sometimes the progression is so subtle that you are also learning to feel subtle things with your body, which most of the students that come out in our classes are totally disconnected from their body. So things are happening, they are progressing, but they don't feel it. But I totally agree with you. It all boils down to give something to each student, which in fact, these big organizations lost that somewhere, either because they are sports oriented, and sports oriented, it's either you have the abilities or you cannot do it, because they just have the program, and the program is to go to the competition. So they're a very different mindset of everybody else that is working on health issues.
Thank you for that. Gina, you had something you wanted to say.
Well, you asked me if I knew how to put my hand up, and there was a yellow palm thing on my screen, which I've never ever seen before.
So we'll take that as a no. Don't worry about it. Don't worry about it.
Well, I'm going to have to go in a minute, but what I will say is I can pass something on to another member of the group, that I know somebody who does Tai Chi with people who are very, very physically limited, and I will talk to her in a couple of days. But I'm going to have to go now because, I say, I'm going out for a meal with, I'm on a holiday, so I'm going to have to leave you.
Have a lovely meal.
Oh God, this is lovely. You lot are drop dead gorgeous. How about that? When I say cheerio.
Okay, bye-bye.
See you soon, Gina.
Bye-bye.
Yeah, I'll be in touch tomorrow because I'm coming back off holiday, and hopefully I'll see you on Tuesday. But I'll get in touch later. I'm sorry I've got to leave, but I feel so privileged to be invited. It is. I'm grateful. I'm very grateful.
It's
But
our
I can
pleasure
give
to have
something
you.
back. I can give something back as well, I think. Right, cheerio then. Bye-bye.
Bye.
Bye. Bye.
Well, I've never been called drop dead gorgeous before. I think those were the words, weren't they? No, I've heard the first two words quite often. Drop dead. Yeah, I've had that happen, just not the gorgeous bit. One thing I will say, since it's come up already, when I posed the question about teaching one-to-one, I wasn't thinking, well, I teach one-to-one at my studio here. I teach, like this morning, 1 to 4, a family group at my studio here, mother, father, 2 young children. This request that I had, which I turned down, was to actually go out to somebody's house to teach them. And I'll be honest, in the modern state of things that we live in, I just felt that might be taking. I'm not actually sure if my insurance covers that. It probably does, but I just wasn't sure if there were risks attached to doing that. And I'm going to be sort of vaguely sexist here. The person that made the inquiry was a woman, so there is that potential issue there as well. I remember many years ago teaching in a gym, and when the lesson finished, the gym was right down the end of the school, miles away from anywhere, basically. And one of the ladies in the class stayed to talk to me, which was fine. But after we'd been talking for about 10 minutes, I started to get uncomfortable. And so I said, look, let's carry on this conversation, but let's just go to the entrance of the school where you could, there was a foyer, whatever you want to call it. And I moved us down to there because I thought by being there, I then have independent witnesses. If anybody says I did X or I didn't do Y. And that was what sort of got me thinking about the issue of going to a student's home. And obviously there's also a cost implication for the student. Yeah, sorry, John. Oh, you're still there, Gina.
Yeah, I'm trying to get out. Just a minute. How do I do that?
There should be a little button in the bottom corner that says end meeting.
Oh, I wonder if I can. Oh, yeah, she's done it. Yeah, Hetty, well done. Well done. Technology, it'll be the end of all of us. John, you've got your hand up.
Yeah, only to talking about people who are less than able, and just briefly to say, I used to know a guy, and I haven't seen him for years, and I think he was in Norfolk, but he taught a class in wheelchairs. They were all, to use the word, disabled in some fashion or another. And he said the most remarkable one, it was a student who couldn't communicate at all, but used to come to the class every week, and his carer told this guy that he sort of insisted on coming, but he really couldn't take part. He just liked to sit there and be part of it. So, I think there's a lot we can do. And I did once teach a guy who had vascular dementia, and that was a challenge. We actually were getting somewhere with him, but he died sadly. So, but he was able to stand up for longer and things like that, and communicate a bit better. But as I say, sadly he died, so I don't know where that would have ended up. But it's I personally think we should take on these things.
Yeah, no, I can see. I mean, I think we've probably all had students that have had challenges of one sort or another, and I think if you, as long as teaching a class still becomes teaching a class. You said it, Sue. You said if you'd been by yourself, you wouldn't have been able. So you can't kind of put the whole class on hold for one person. On the other hand, every student is different. Every student does have different demands on you, and your job as an instructor is to try. And I've seen people who are way better than me, and I've seen others as well. Your thing is to try and be able to give attention and useful attention to as many as possible. Sue, your hand is raised.
Yeah, so again, covering both. We seem to have both of these sections intermingled today, don't we? Which is great. I quite like how it just works out the way it does. So because of this gentleman, it has given me considerable thought to opening a new class for people who are specifically disabled in some way or need that extra bit of help, and perhaps just do a short form, something that is doable, and also perhaps mix the class up a bit, some qigong which you can do seated and a short form, and see if how that works. So I have been seriously giving some thought to that over the last couple of weeks, and going back to the one-to-one, I have done quite a few sessions and gone out to their properties for two reasons. One, I haven't got the space inside. And if it's chucking it down, we do live in good old England. We never know what weather we're going to get. So, you know, it's impossible for me to, well, I could bring them here, but it literally is enough space to do one move at a time. You couldn't do a form. So I have gone out to people's houses. I am extremely careful. So if I do go somewhere, I make it really clear and make sure I get to know them, get a bit of background information, and I make sure Steve knows exactly where I am, how long I'm going to be, what time I'm going to be back, and he'll be checking on me. You know, if there is if I'm, well, I guess more or less straight away, if I'm not home when I say I'm going to be, he's going to be checking. So I think it is important, but I think this goes for not just Tai Chi, you know, there's a lot of people out there, mobile hairdressers, you know, holistic therapists, you know, that do have to go around to other people's houses because either they can't afford to rent somewhere or they don't want them coming into their property. So, you know, it's a funny old world out there and you have to be careful, but I think it is important to make sure that environment is safe and that you have got some idea of where you're going, who they are, and what they're doing. As it happened, the gentleman that came in on Friday actually came with his wife. So she's going to carry on coming on the Friday, and he wants me to do some one-to-ones with her, which leaves me feeling much more comfortable going to his house because his wife was there as well, you know. So there are things that you have to take into account. And I don't think it matters whether you're male or female, it can go either way.
Yeah. I mean, when I used to teach on the subject for corporates, I always used to say that it's very easy to assume that a male female relationship is more conflict driven or dangerous or potentially dangerous than male male or female female or anything else. And I always used to say that, of course, the problem with that thinking is it comes from a very heterosexual mindset, and not everybody is heterosexual. So you might find that there is a man who feels really uncomfortable when being talked to by a woman, but feels comfortable with a man, or vice versa, or vice versa, or any number of other vice versas that cover all the bases. I think the problem, the only problem I would say, and obviously once you've met people, hopefully you get a read on them. And if you're going somewhere and it is their house and you know, and somebody else knows you're there, then yes, your safety margin, your margin for safety is much higher. Of course, the other side of that coin is that the mere fact that you see a man with his wife does not make that man safe.
Or that couple safe.
Sorry?
I said, the couple safe, you know what I mean?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, you know, bad things do happen to good people, and we should always, hopefully we're all good people, and hopefully we should always be aware of that. The other side of that coin, of course, I have a large coin here. There you are. There's a large coin. The other side of that coin is that you don't want to be paranoid, because if you're paranoid, and I don't mean that in a clinical sense, but if you're always worrying about all the bad things that could happen, the problem is you will not give enough of yourself. You will not emit enough of yourself to build trust and friendship with your students. And I mean, I know on our kitchen table at the moment there are boxes and boxes, little boxes and boxes of Turkish Delight and Halva that we're giving out to various students of ours that over the years we've become particularly friendly with. And then there's some extra boxes that will be given out en masse to the hoi polloi. You know, it is definitely, for me, not for all instructors, I get this, for me, part of the joy of teaching Tai Chi is the fact that you do build up those relationships with some of your students. Who else wants to come in? Carrison, you've been very quiet. What are you up to?
Yeah, hang on. Sorry, I just lost the signal for a moment then, but I am back in the game. Yes, on the two things of one, a standardized curriculum, and then also teaching one-to-one. Those are the two questions on there. The concept of a standardized curriculum fills me with horror. That I think, I mean, I don't think there's any possible way to do it, because Tai Chi is such a broad church. There are so many styles and so on. And I mean, you could say within one particular school, you could say, right, this is how it goes. And with what I teach, what I've designed and developed, then yes, I am really quite insistent that people do it accurately. But that is primarily because in order to get the health benefits as quickly as possible, you have to do it in the correct way. It doesn't actually matter if you're not doing it perfectly correctly, you're still going to get significant benefits. But to get the maximum and rapid health benefits that my system provides, then you do need to do it correctly. It's a bit like saying, well, I need to lose weight, but you telling me to stop boozing and eating loads of rice and sweets is, why should I do that? And so, well, that's what you've got to do in order to get the effects. And so on that basis, that yes, and as I start to bring on my own instructors and I train them and I qualify them and I make sure that they've good analogy, good knowledge of anatomy and physiology and biomechanics, as well as actually knowing the Tai Chi and all the exercise physiology and so on, that there will be standards in order for of examination and assessment that they will need to achieve in order to qualify as one of my licensed instructors. So in that sense, that yes, I'm standardizing a curriculum, but that's within the system that I have designed and developed based on having taught Tai Chi for 40 years and having had 30 years clinical experience in healthcare and so on, and putting all that together. But the idea of having a standardized curriculum across the board, just I don't think that has any intrinsic meaning, really. And as I mentioned before, one of these previous webinars, I've often had the experience of meeting people who study Tai Chi or even who instruct Tai Chi, and you get this thing of sort of, oh well, of course we do real Tai Chi, and you think, oh God, well, actually, I'm the only person in the world who really does real Tai Chi. Sorry, mate, but what you do is not the same as mine. I do real Tai Chi, and I'm the only person in the entire world who actually does real Tai Chi. Do you know what I mean? And it happens all the time. I think I said about how when I was a student in the clinic, we had some guy who had injured himself quite badly, and he was wearing a T-shirt saying "Practical Tai Chi Chuan." This was 35 years ago, and so, that's interesting because I do Tai Chi. That's what got me into this career path as well in healthcare. How did you injure yourself? He said, well, I was doing Tai Chi. Well, how did you injure yourself doing Tai Chi? Well, I was trying to do a shoulder throw with a 17-stone man. And you think, sort of, right, okay, why would you do that anyway? And if you're doing Tai Chi as a martial art, why would you, someone who looks as if you weigh about 9 stone, try to throw a 17-stone man over your shoulder when surely, you want to move a ton, use an ounce to move a ton. Don't try and, do you know what I mean? Yes. And so you do get this, and this is why I come back full circle again to saying I don't think there's any possible way to standardize the curriculum. Funnily enough, I bumped into another Tai Chi instructor just last night, someone who I'd never met before, but I realized from how she was walking and what she was doing that she was an instructor, and I went over to sort of introduce myself. And of course, one of the first things she said was, "Oh, and what style do you teach?" I think so. Right. Okay. Here we go again. Well, actually, I've studied multiple styles, and now I've designed my own system, which is unique. And you can see their eyes glaze over, because if you've not learned, and in fact, today I went to this particular person's website, and they very proudly talk about the fact that they do Chen style, and that they were instructed by someone who's an official 20th generation from the original. And I think, it's all bullshit, really, because what Tai Chi, to me, fundamentally, Tai Chi is a process of self-discovery, of learning to understand yourself as a person, as a whole person, mind and body entirely integrated, learning to tune into your body. And like, I think, was it John earlier or Lewis maybe saying about how there are so many people who have such minimal body sense and body awareness. And this is what I've realized in the course of my clinical career, treating thousands of patients. We're a very visual species, and we all live out there. We all live focused on the outside world. And even when you learn about the five senses in school, you don't learn about your inner body sense. All the five senses you learn about all provide information about the outside world. And we all live entirely out there. And people don't pay any attention to what's going on in here until they're in pain. And then it's too late. It's like the body sort of saying, "Hey, hang on, I need some attention." So no, I'm too busy out here. And so, well, right, okay. Right, now I've got your attention because now you're in pain. And people don't pay attention to their bodies until they're in pain or they're hungry or they're full, full bowel, full stomach, full bladder. And that's the only time that they pay attention to themselves. So Tai Chi for me is very much a process of going through discovering what you are and who you are and tuning into your body sense, your physical and postural self-awareness. And that's the system that I've designed to maximize that and make that happen as rapidly as possible. And again, there are so many styles of Tai Chi, and there are so many philosophies behind it, and so on. And again, I was thinking earlier with this thing about standardizing a curriculum. Okay, so do you follow Confucius or do you follow Lao Tzu? Because if you follow Confucius, then you want sort of absolute rigid rules, and you read all the analects and stuff. It's all about being very precise and doing things in a very, very precise way, and everybody has to do it exactly the same. But if you're more leaning towards Lao Tzu, as I am, it's much more about individual freedom and sort of and self-expression and just finding your way to work, to swim with the current of life just naturally. So that's my 2 pence worth on that.
Thank you for that, Kerry.
Within my
Yes.
system, yes, there will be a very standardized curriculum, but I don't see how it's ever possible to have a broad standardized curriculum across the board for all forms of Tai Chi, all styles, and all intentions of Tai Chi. As for one-to-one, yeah, I have a few one-to-one clients. I keep my classes small. In Petersfield, I have a maximum of 5 in a class. In Horndean here, I have a maximum of 4. That's partly because of the size of the studio that I use, but it also means that I can give that much more individual attention to helping people with what they're doing. I do offer a one-to-one service as a sort of super deluxe service that I charge for, which when someone comes to me, and I'll do a full sort of lifestyle review of looking into their current health state. So I do a full health assessment, and I do a full fitness assessment and a full lifestyle review, and then incorporate the aspects of Tai Chi that I've designed into helping them turn their whole lives around. But that's a sort of more like a coaching program, a one-to-one coaching program than just individual tuition. But we'll see. Yeah, I mean, I've done a few times of going to people's houses, but that's normally it's never one-to-one. I have had a few one-to-one students, women as well as men, come to me, and I've never had an issue with it. Yeah, no, there we go. So that's there you go.
Yeah, no, I mean, certainly from my perspective, going out to somebody on a one-to-one, for me, feels very different than having a one-to-one in my studio. I think, I don't know why. The only thing that pops into my mind, I did once have a student who was, I don't know what the clinical diagnosis would have been, but he was on lithium, and I didn't learn this until very late in the transaction.
Lithium is largely for bipolar disorder quite often. Sorry.
And I mean, that was there was an evening spent with this gentleman, and it got quite a bit scary. I realized he wasn't perhaps, to use an old-fashioned term, playing with quite a full deck when he explained to me how he had been responsible for the Lockerbie disaster. And yeah, at that point, I was like, "Oh shit! This guy knows where I live. I've got it's many years ago. I've got a young family. What do I do now?" And I remember thinking, you know, because we were in a pub at the time in a fairly remote part of the world, and I do remember the thought going through my mind, in order to protect my family, do I actually need to kill this man and hide the body? Luckily, I came up with a much more equitable solution than that, and we both went our ways separately and happily. And so there are things that have happened to me over the years that probably make me less comfortable in a one-to-one in somebody else's house than it might be for you or you or you. By the way, Elizabeth, hello, nice to see you. Thank you for joining us. Sorry, somebody said something there in the background. I don't know who it was. I'm hearing voices. Has somebody got noise in the background? Okay, don't worry about it. So going back to what Carrison said about teaching. So what, if I can summarize that, Carrison, what you're saying is within your organization, yes, there have to be standards. There has to be a curriculum, I presume, of some sorts. Oh, have we lost Kerrison? Is he frozen? I think his video's frozen. So Louis, and I'm probably mispronouncing your name again. What do you teach? What organization are you with? Is it just you, or
At
are you?
the moment, no. At the moment, I teach Tai Chi and Qigong. I'm in Portugal. I brought the young family to Portugal from Yanjun, and we set up 3 schools here. So I have some pro bono work in seniors university, where I face a lot of people with different challenges, and I also do sort of small workshops especially now because we have good weather around here, not like England, and we can go all through the year teaching outside. It's generally very well.
By the way, if you're feeling an internal feeling at the moment, that feeling is the hatred coming from all the people in England when you go, and I can teach all year outside, right?
Okay.
Nothing personal, you understand? Just
totally
just the way it is. No, I mean, teaching outside, I mean, I know when I was in China some years ago, the instructor I was visiting in his home to learn Liu He Ba Fa, which was 2 weeks of exceptional fun that when I came back to England turned out to be a complete waste of time because my memory wasn't good enough to retain even the little Liu He Ba Fa that I'd learned. But he also taught Chen style, and he taught out in a park in Guangzhou in China. And they basically, and it was a fairly big class, I would have thought 30, 40 or more people. They basically were out there every day, come rain or shine. And I'm not saying you would never get that in England, but I can only think of a couple of people that I've ever come across in England that have that kind of group that would happily go out and train when the weather is bleh, to use a technical meteorological term.
For me, the 2 experience I had as a student, as a visiting student, one-to-one, was the best decisions of my life, because on one side it's too intense for most of the people. I understand that, especially for the students. One-to-one is hard, but you get to see all the details, and you have the person right there next to you, and it's if you have some limitations of time or whatever, of course. But in my case, I really wanted to deepen down and see details, and you can only see that in a one-to-one person. In a class, I've met some good teachers, but in a class, I never would get that kind of attention, that kind of transmission. That's for sure.
Yeah, no, I mean you're absolutely right. In a group class, you are limited. Sue, you've got your hand raised.
Just going back to outside. If I am doing one-to-ones and it's somebody who I'm not sure about, and anyway, even in whatever, if the weather's nice, I always encourage going to. I've got a lovely local park, some nice concrete area, and I always encourage that first and foremost before I go to anybody else's property. So I did want to mention that. And then going back to the English weather, during lockdown, we did Tai Chi when we was allowed out to play, of course, together, even if it was only in groups of fives. We did it all the way through the winter and the summer. So, and it was fabulous some of the time. It was awful some of the time. But and doing Tai Chi with a sprinkling of snow was actually quite nice. So, yeah.
It's interesting because obviously classically you shouldn't do Tai Chi out when it's raining and when it's snowing and when it's foggy and blah, 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 blah. But certainly one of my best memories when I used to live in Luton many years ago was going up on Dunstable Downs early one day and practicing Tai Chi in thick fog. And there was a surreal and deeply relaxing nature to it that was just lovely.
It's weird, yeah.
Yeah, and I think maybe this is something which is important, is that I think it's important, maybe it's important, is that you have to unpack from everything you've been taught and everything you have read, the things that are functionally beneficial and the things that are historic warnings, as it were. So, for instance, there are religions that won't eat pork. There are religions that won't eat beef. I can't speak for the beef one, but the pork religious thing came about because at one time it was an extremely dangerous meat to eat. Say, you know, and so there was a medical reason that people probably didn't articulate as a medical reason, and it became a cultural reason. At least I think that's an analysis of the facts. In the same way with Tai Chi, probably go back a number of years, although people will have probably been, many people will have been physically stronger because they did more physically laboring, farming, village stuff, they won't have been as well as we are. They will not have had paracetamol to deal with the onset of a cold, or vitamin C, or whatever it is your personal preference is. So I think maybe some of those things, like not practicing when the wind is blowing from the southwest at a speed of 3.5 knots and rainy, whatever. I think some of that may have been very, very sensible, but I think we now need to relook at it. I don't mean you ignore it because it's old wisdom. You look at it and you see, is old wisdom still current wisdom? I don't know if anybody has any thoughts on that.
I think it
I
depends.
have read somewhere. Sorry. I have read somewhere that the two acupressure points at the back of the neck are quite important. That you shouldn't get the cold wind blowing it, and that is why the Chinese have that collar around. So I mean, I'm not sure how true that is. It's just something that I read once, and I thought, oh, that's interesting, you know. But I know Nancy, when she's saying she should not go out and do Tai Chi in the wind, but I've done it in the wind, and it's quite interesting trying to stand on one leg, you know, when it's windy. And I don't mind giving it a go. But yeah, it's just it is interesting.
I've been involved in for many years in the classes all through. Our winter is not like yours. We have some periods, especially January or middle of February, very, very cold, and the rest is more or less because we are next to the sea. But we have the class has different age students, and we do it all the year, all around in the outside. The only thing we do it when it rains, we find some cover, some natural structures that we have in the parks, and we look for some cover from the direct rain. And also on the other side, you have this idea that the more you stress the body to a certain limit, more resistant you become. So we are a bit too spoiled, and we need to counteract that a little bit. But of course, everyone has to look for their limits if it's not one for all.
Yeah, I mean that's the problem. Well, one of the many problems I think with teaching group classes. You're trying to explain continually to your students that growth comes by pushing the boundaries, but you damage yourself if you push the boundaries too far or too fast. And in a group class, it's very difficult because you will always have people in a group class that look around and see what other people are doing and judge their own value on what other people are doing. I'm a huge believer in a little phrase that I trot out time after time, which is Tai Chi is an individual exercise that we just happen to practice in a group. So I'm always trying to get my students to think of themselves as an individual and doing what they can, but nevertheless you do get people, especially if you're doing, say, even something like quite gentle stretching, there'll be somebody that is really not flexible at all and they're watching somebody who is just naturally more flexible, and you can almost hear their bones breaking as they try and do something. Very difficult. Elizabeth, have you anything to say? Or you, Beely? Anybody who hasn't said anything? Yeah, Elizabeth, please join in.
Yeah, unfortunately, I have to leave soon because I have another meeting at 1. But this has been very, very interesting, very informative. And Robert, I remember when you in Maryland, but you were in the States and you attended one of the Tai Chi meetings. And I remember, I think that was you, right? You were in the States and you attended one of the meetings in the US on a Monday
Do you
night.
mean one of these group meetings, or do you mean a physical meeting, Elizabeth?
No, it was a group meeting, but it was.
Oh yeah. No, I attend the ones that Robert Chuckrow.
Yes,
Yeah. No,
yeah.
I mean there's one here. It'll be Tuesday morning. It'll be sometime tomorrow. Yeah, I'll probably attend that one. It's horrible because it means I have to be awake from 1 a.m. to 3 a.m.
Yeah,
But yeah, I
yeah,
like those meetings, and
yeah.
obviously for anybody else that's here, if you ever can attend the ones that Robert C hosts,
Yes.
it's
Yeah.
well worth doing that. Where are you based, Elizabeth?
I'm in Silver Spring, Maryland.
The only person I know of in Maryland who I've never trained with is Richard Clear. He's a
No.
Tai Chi instructor I'm fairly certain he's in Maryland, and I've always wanted to go and train with him because his website and some of his videos look really interesting. But it's like there was a guy, Ken Gillette, who was hopefully going to join us today, but one of the emails I got apologizing because he's teaching. I was hoping to see Ken because I'm going to America later this year.
Okay.
And my original plan was to go and tour the northeast, the northeast states, because I've only ever been to New Hampshire once, and I wanted to go to all the other ones. I was going to train with Alex Dong because he's, pardon me, doing a seminar in November in upstate New York. I was going to go there. Then I was going to fly and meet up with Ken, and then I was going to fly over to meet up with my son who lives in Long Beach with his wife. But that's now all changed. And so basically my wife and I are just going to go to California for a month at the year end. And unfortunately, and I must remember to ask this to Robert's group, unfortunately, I don't know any decent Tai Chi teachers out Long Beach way. It would be great to meet up with a few if there are any. I mean, when we were in Turkey this last week for a week. Where we were, as far as I could see, there was no. It was just a giant tourist resort and no Tai Chi teachers. I am a huge fan of training with other people. Sorry, I've gone off on one. Sorry. Elizabeth, yeah, on what we've been talking about before you have to go. Any thoughts?
No, it's just been very, very interesting. My background, I'm a mental health therapist, and I introduced Tai Chi to my clients. I had maybe about 8 years ago a very large substance abuse program, and they were all offenders. They didn't have money, and so I started teaching them Tai Chi as part of I did a lot of groups, and as part of the group, we always started with Tai Chi and we ended with Tai Chi. And some people I met with individually, and it was because they didn't have money to join a gym. You know, they were just they were on probation. They had served their time in jail. They were on probation. So they didn't have money to go to a gym, and then it was very relaxing for them. And then I also use it with my clients. I work with now in a clinic. I work online, and I'm part of the suicide prevention program. So I work with a lot of clients that have depression, and one of the things that I find out that really helps them is opening the door and closing the door. And sometimes I'll have them rock forward as they're opening the door and rock backwards. And the tide rolls in and the tide rolls out. And that's been very helpful for them. It just relaxes them. And then doing breath work with open the door and closing the door. And sometimes the single what we want to hold on to the positive things and what we want to let go of the negative things. So, and then I do teach Tai Chi at a health club, and I have 5 clients there, or 5 members of that group, and they have the yoga classes that will have like 15 or 20 people. So I'm hoping that they won't put the pressure on me to bring more people, because it's a very nice, relaxing group with just the five people that attend that.
That makes a lot of sense. Yeah, and certainly, I mean, I've never worked with offenders. I've worked at a drug, not a rehab unit, a drug. I can't think what they called it. It was a respite unit, a drug. I worked at a drug respite unit. That was very interesting. I used to learn fencing, foil saber and épée, when I was quite young, 20 something. And one of the guys there had just been released from young offenders prison because he'd stabbed somebody in a fight and killed them, or I think he'd got away with manslaughter, so he only had a few years in jail. But we never considered him an offender. He was just, I don't remember his name now, but he was just Joe, and he was one of the club.
Yeah.
Didn't pay any attention to. And I suspect that I don't know, but I suspect the trick to dealing with offenders is the same as the trick that I used when I was dealing with people in the drug respite unit, which is by and large to totally ignore the fact it's not important. It doesn't affect Tai Chi. Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Has anybody else here worked with those kind of groups, drug addicts or ex-criminals or even practicing criminals? Take that as a no. Anything else you want to say, Elizabeth? Otherwise, I'm going to try and encourage Beely to join in. Anything else,
No,
Elizabeth?
that's it. No, that's it for
Okay.
today. So I'll keep looking for the invite and hope to see everybody again soon.
Lovely, Elizabeth. Thank you very much for joining us. Beely, do you want to decloak, unmask, and maybe not. May be busy, of course. Oh no, here he comes. Billy, hello, sir.
Had to take me out of my trance. I don't talk much. You know that, Robert. I'm not a very good talker. So, but well, somebody said something about style. I don't know what it was about style or about I teach the only Tai Chi or something of that nature. and I thought to myself, I don't teach any style, but I don't know anything about Tai Chi. I teach based on that premise. Let's put it that way. But I was curious about style. You talk about the yang, the yang, the yin, the wu, the sun, all these different styles of Tai Chi. But what I wonder about as a teacher, which I don't claim to be one, so I'm exempt. What is your style of life that you represent when you teach your style of Tai Chi? Who are you? What is your history that you have since your birth up to this point? And does that show in your form, in the way you teach? I had something here that reminded me of it. I don't know if you guys would like. I would like to read it. If it's okay.
Absolutely. Yes.
Yeah. I'm good. I like reading. I have a book here called 365 Tao Meditation. It's a book by Desmond Dow, and he has a meditation on style, and so it talks about a kind of like a dusty old man sitting someplace, maybe on a rock, playing his guitar, and I'll read it. It says, the old man sits on a granite step. He plucks his treasure guitar. The strings throb with feeling. He needs no audience to open his heart. A boy there wants to learn his style. He's really important. I'd like to learn your style. And the man says, my style is made of a long road of life of heartbreak and joy, and people loved and loneliness, of war and its atrocities, of a baby born, of burying parents and friends. My scale is the 7 stars of Dipper. The hollow of my guitar is the space between heaven and earth. How can I show you my style? You have your own life. So I thought, interesting, because that's kind of sense how I feel about Tai Chi. I don't follow a resonant way of. Never have. Matter of fact, I got thrown into being a teacher even when I didn't want to be one, but my teacher. Okay, and I never claimed to be a teacher. I never will. But I have a place here. It's a prestigious name. I call it Hidden Gardens. And I moved out here in Pennsylvania just because it was in the rural. I sit on a large property here. I'm kind of like away from everybody. And so nature has become my teacher in a way. I'm not afraid to go out in the wind, not afraid to go out in the rain, not afraid to go out in the snow. I'm not afraid to go up in the middle and do my Tai Chi up there. And as the deer walk by, they sense that I'm no harm. So that kind of thing. But we're all, like I say, about when we're born and we go on our life, we develop some kind of, I'm sure all of us have some style we use from our learnings, not just from Tai Chi, but from people that you've also met that become, sort of teachers in a way themselves. So it's not just Tai Chi that I think is the most important thing. I think it's everything that we come across in life that has bearings on what we do and how we say and what we, and how we relate to people. So I'm curious if anyone here has ever thought about that as they teach. Are they presenting, and kind of maybe dance a little bit away from what some requirements are about tea, but pick up a little bit about how I could relate with people based on my sense of the world, my sense of my own self. And so it's just a thought. And that's basically what I have to say. Thank you.
Thank you for that, Billy. That's. I'll come back to that. I'd like other people to come in on that. Who would like to come in on that? Yes, John. You're muted. Oh, yeah,
Yeah, sorry, I'm unmuted now. Yeah, I mean, only because it's something I haven't really thought about, but I certainly will, you know, now, because it's true. How we are influences how we teach, what we bring to the class. Must do. So yeah, I think it's very interesting, and it's certainly something I'm going to put some thought into. Maybe make a few notes. That's yeah.
I like to add something to that, because sometimes through books and history we get some wrong ideas of these things are transmitted. But in the old days, according to some records, the teachers would teach the students according to what they already knew and their personality. It was nothing coming out of thin air, because most of the martial artists already had some experience when they arrived to study with Yang Cheng Fu or whatever fancy name that we can bring out. And they were already accomplished martial artists. So you cannot erase what they know. So their personality was already coming through what they did, how they did it, how they saw life. So it's, I think you brought in a very important point of view, which is really we consciously or not, we have to walk our thoughts and what we say. So, but even a little step further than what John was saying, we not only our personality not only influences how we teach, but also what we learn. There are things we cannot learn at a certain point. We are not prepared, so we won't learn them. We might learn them later or never, but because our personality, our concerns at that moment doesn't allow us to understand. And that's even in children's stories, they have this idea that you read the story repeatedly, and the children, as it develops the brain, understands different things and understands the story differently. I think we do this all our lives. And that brings us to Tai Chi. How Tai Chi changes every day.
No, thank you for that. I think the thing about Tai Chi, us changing and Tai Chi changing, I can't even say it, is something that obviously happens. I think the maybe the advantage of Tai Chi over some other disciplines is, I think maybe Tai Chi tends to lead its practitioners, and I'm including all instructors obviously as practitioners, tends to lead its practitioners towards a degree of introspection, because you are continually monitoring the relationship between your mind and your body as you practice Tai Chi. And I think maybe on a good day, that can lead you to monitor other things that are happening within yourself, your personality, your way of interacting with the world. Having said that, I'm equally sure that there are days when I have the introspective capabilities of a large house brick. In other words, nothing whatsoever. But anyway, Carrison,
I'm just saying goodbye. I've got to go now.
Oh.
So but rather than just disappear, I just put my hand up to say thank you very much, everybody. It's all been always very interesting as always, and lots of things to think about. So anyway, stay strong, stay smiling, and I'll see you next time. Yeah.
Lovely, Carrison. You look after yourself.
Okay, bye.
Bye. Sue.
Yeah, just sort of, I was kind of with everybody because it's just an interesting concept. But I'm hearing a lot about Tai Chi and martial arts and that world. And I think Beeley was actually talking more about the you before or behind the Tai Chi, your personality there, and how you can bring that forward. And I always find that I've just come back from a little festival today, a charity festival. They have it every year. His daughter died at the age of 20 from leukemia, and he's created a charity festival. So rock music is being played, and you know, there's a copious amount of alcohol drunk, you know, and people see me dancing away, you know, to the rock music, a bit of head banging, and they're like, oh, Tai Chi, Sue, what's she doing? And I think sometimes they forget that you are actually a person behind that, you know, that you have actually got your own life that goes on, and, you know, that you actually enjoy a glass of wine just as much as the next person. And you know, even we've done, Frank and I done the partner form to rock music, and also to, you know, sort of Beethoven sort of stuff. You know, let's test it with this. Let's see what that works like. You know, and we've done all sorts of different things just for fun on our own. And I think, you know, sometimes your personality will come out into the into the classroom, into the dojo, into wherever you are, and I think that's quite a good thing, to be honest, because there's got to be yin and yang. You know, you can't live your life in this perfect world of just Tai Chi on a mountain every day for the rest of your life. You've got to do a bit of everything, you know, and I think that's really just what I wanted to say there.
No, thank you for that. Yeah, I mean, I have a number of bugs in my head, and one of the bugs in my head is a thing about integrity and authenticity. So people who know me through Tai Chi, people who know me personally, people who have known me in the past through the various businesses I've been a part of, that I've run, whatever, basically this is what they got, warts and all, terrible sense of humor, not politically correct, no dress sense, etc., etc., etc. Because I've never been clever enough to be different people in different situations. I've tried once or twice and I've failed miserably. So for me, authenticity is hopefully, maybe, or just naturally, it's kind of inbuilt. This is who I am, if you like it. Every time I teach a new person Tai Chi, when they come, especially to the Thursday class, which is held in a sports centre, and it's the sports centre who runs the class, I just teach there. At the beginning, I give them the brief health and safety briefing, which is don't do what you can't do. If anything hurts, stop and let me know. I have a terrible sense of humour. Everybody suffers. I'm not in the least bit politically correct. If you need to put your fingers in your ears and go la la la, you can. And as I said to a woman this week, I had 3 new people last Thursday, the day after I got back from Turkey, so I was probably a bit tired. And I said, and if you don't like that, you can. And they got a round of laughter at that one, because I'm dealing with adults. I'm dealing with people, on the whole, that live in the real world. But I've forgotten what I was going to say. That'll teach me to reminisce, won't it? John, get me out of this. You've got your hand raised. You say something sensible. I'm just going to close down my screen for a minute. I will be back with you in a moment. John, over to you.
Yeah, okay. I don't know if this is sensible. Just really very brief, just a statement talking about how bringing ourselves to the class, affecting how we teach. I am, and don't ask me to explain this, but I feel I'm a totally different bloke to the one I was when I started doing Tai Chi 22, 23 years ago. Bearing in mind I knew nothing about Tai Chi at that point, and I think I know a little bit more now. But yeah, I think we can, Tai Chi changes us, so what we bring to our classes must, I believe, inevitably change over the years. And I'm sure my current batch of students are getting far more out of me than the ones I had when I started teaching. It wasn't quite 20. I didn't start teaching 20 years ago, but you know, say 15, 18 years ago. Brief time, I'm still a student, really. And Robert's not back, so somebody else wants
to. I agree. I've got videos of myself on my YouTube, and I look at them now, and I've got red short hair. I was a complete different person back then, you know, and I'm look at myself and I think, God, you just look so stiff. And I've looked at old Zoom recordings when, you know, during even just 5 years ago during lockdown, and you can see the difference in yourself. You grow day by day, week by week, month by month, and I think everybody does. And we're not the same person that we were this morning, are we? You know, we're changing all the time. Every part of our body, our mind is changing constantly. And, you know, that's got to be a good thing. And learn from your mistakes, move on from them. Simple.
That begs a question, of course, which is, how do you monitor, or should you monitor, acknowledging that change happens, change is inevitable to all of us? Do you monitor whether the changes that are happening to you are an improvement or not? Is it important to improve or not? So is change just inevitable? You know, the hair falls out, the teeth fall out, etc. and does, luckily my teeth aren't falling out today, or is, I mean, again, this comes back, I can't help it, I have a very strong internal frame of reference, so I always judge things based on things that have happened to me or things that I have done. I have an ongoing, deliberate, conscious process of trying to improve myself physically, and that's a battle with my appetite for pizza. Physically, mentally, intellectually, I try and improve, although there is a little voice at the back that says, well, eventually that's a complete waste of time because time wins. But is that something that is common amongst us all, that we do want to improve? We do want to improve not just Tai Chi, but all the other facets of our life and being. And is that part of what Tai Chi has brought to us, or is that something that we have brought to Tai Chi? Louis?
I think going back to something was said before about styles, I think Tai Chi chose us somehow. The same way we talk about styles, there are people that become more fond of styles because somehow, if they're not limited by the offer locally, but somehow some styles are closer to their hearts than others, and probably people don't even know how to explain or why, but they feel more comfortable. And I think with us happens the same. We change, and we become hopefully more comfortable about ourselves, and we make people around us also more comfortable, because the impact we have on people around us, either we teach, but mainly if we teach, it becomes very different. What we can transmit to the people around us becomes better quality and eventually more profound and with more impact, because we also hear more. And Tai Chi in that specific area is particularly gifted to support us in that, I think.
Thank you. John?
Oh, yeah. Just going back on what you were saying before about constantly trying to improve, wanting to improve in everything, not just Tai Chi. I agree with that, but I think one of the dangers that could muck it all up is thinking we have improved, believing that we've improved. I'm always telling my students, you will never learn Tai Chi. I'll never learn Tai Chi. If you think you've learned it, then there's the door, because it's an impossibility. So I think that yes, we do try to improve in all sorts of ways, but I don't think we should ever accept the fact that, or believe the fact that we have.
Sue, thank
Yeah,
you, John. Sue.
I absolutely agree with that. We try to improve ourselves in every way, shape, or form. You know, this week I'm going to eat better. This week I'm going to exercise more. This week I'm going to do something else as well as Tai Chi. You know, we're constantly trying to better ourselves in every way. But what actually is better? Who says that there was anything wrong before? You know, I think a lot of the time, I think we're worried about we're getting older, and as we get older, we need to look after the bodies a little bit more. We need to look after the mind a little bit more, and we're just basically trying to live longer and stay happy. I think, at least as happy as we can in the world that we live in. So you know, I totally agree that as far as Tai Chi goes. I need to live 1,000 lifetimes to even. I've mentioned before, you know, I know very little Tai Chi, in the fact that I've only ever looked at Yang family, and I can't actually say whether that's the one for me because I haven't particularly tried any of the others. So you know, it's just that's where I landed, and and because to start with, it was I need to learn this and I can't learn anything else because I just can't take too much information in. I'll just get confused. And then as the years went on, then it got a little bit embarrassing. If you went somewhere else, they kind of, oh, you're judging me if you come here. And so then I think I've come through all that, and now I'm realizing that actually there's a lot of people who would actually appreciate you turning up. Just let them know first, I'm in the area, can I come? I mean, that's just come from being part of this group. I'm in the area, do you mind if I pop in? Next time I'm in Portugal, Louis might see me, you know, because before I would have turned up and gone, oh no, they might not be welcome, they might not want me there, you know, and it's just judging yourself, and it's ridiculous. So you know, and that again, it's part of growing, and it's part of learning, and it's part of moving on, and letting go of yesterday and what that was, because every day's a school day.
Yeah, no, I mean, certainly the ability that some people have to go around and go and visit people and train with other people. Sorry, I'm trying to think how to say this without it being sounding really egotistical. When I learned karate, which I learned for 32 years, Dennis, my instructor, had a rule which was you had to ask him for permission if you went to train with anybody else. And I would be regularly saying, Dennis, can I have permission? This is meant to be a phone, by the way. Do you remember when phones looked like that? I would be phoning up Dennis.
With a long wire.
Yeah, with a wire. That's it, and a dial. I would be phoning up Dennis. I'd say, Dennis, would you mind if I go? I want to go to this seminar. I want to go and train. And Dennis would always, bless him, in all fairness to Dennis, he would always say yes. And I always remember after I got my black belt with him, after about 8 years of training, I got my first degree black belt with Dennis, and I phoned him up one day, and he sort of said to me, look, you don't need to phone me up anymore. You don't need to ask permission. What he actually meant was, I'm so bloody sick and tired of you asking me for permission. Just go and do it. So I've always done that with Tai Chi, with karate, with anything that interested me. When I was a young trainee accountant, way back, I had an agreement with my boss that I could take unpaid days leaves. And in those days, I was interested in scuba diving, although I hadn't done much. I was also very interested in those days in physical security, alarm systems, that kind of thing, because I dabbled with electronics. And I would say, oh, Mr. Donald, is it all right if I have next Thursday off? I want to go. And I would go and I would see. So that's always been part of my life. And so when I meet people who say, I have only trained with one instructor and I would never go anywhere else because it would be like I would be being unfaithful to them, I find that very difficult to comprehend, because if you go somewhere else, you might be lucky. You might learn some little thing that you could bring back home and share. And then your instructor would get, we all want to be better, don't we? But I don't know. As I say, I don't know how to explain that feeling that cross training is something we should all be doing. And I mean, I like Yang style. Yang style works for me. I like Sun style. I haven't done enough of it. I did 3 years of Chen style, and it, not the stamping, but just some of the stances, the way it was taught, were just too hard on my bad knee. So after 3 years, I gave up Chen style. Are there other styles out there? I did a bit of Wu style with Alex Dong a month and a half, 2 months ago, whatever it was. I like not Wu style, sorry, How style. And I liked that, but I doubt that I'll ever do any more of that. But yeah, I mean, I agree. I've never been to Portugal, and it's definitely on my list of places to go. So yeah, I mean, we've talked about this in a previous session, haven't we? This idea of getting together, and there's people that would happily get together, and there's other people who go, oh no, I could never leave my house. And I get it. I shouldn't be cruel to people like that, because there's all sorts of good reasons why you might not want to go to Portugal. But yeah, it's true. You and I'll have to have a little chat, and then Billy, you can come over. We allow Americans into Europe at the moment. I'm not sure.
We do.
I take you up on that.
Yeah, that would be fantastic. You'd always be welcome here, sir. Anybody else got anything to add to anything?
I have a question. No, I better not. No.
Yeah, go for it, Billy. Please do.
I don't know. The word Tai Chi. Okay. I know when people say Tai Chi, they automatically think about people doing these beautiful forms and things out in the park and that kind of thing. But I don't know if that's really, in my view, what Tai Chi really is. If you would say, I do Tai Chi Chuan, well, then I say, okay, then I understand you're doing a form of martial energy using yin and yang. But what is Tai Chi? What is really the name of Tai Chi? What does it represent? What is the real meaning? And I have a sense that it's more like the word Tao, the Tao of, or something that's very, absence of, of, I wouldn't say just form, but part of no form, about something that doesn't exist. We came from somewhere, and obviously we're here. So when they say, the Tao of, the Tao of cooking, the Tao of playing an instrument, the Tao of playing Tai Chi, or the Tao of playing something, it tells me something different about the word Tai Chi in itself. This by itself, this Tai Chi by itself. So I don't know. I'm just throwing that out because I've never felt that. I've been playing this art for about 30 some years now, and I still don't really think I know what it means. Okay, in that sense, I know what people refer it to. Okay. But I remember my teacher once saying, if you don't understand yin yang, you'll never understand Tai Chi. And yin yang is the symbol, as I say on the back there, of what where it came from the from nothing to something to two to three and onward to what we are now. So I don't know if anybody's ever thought about this. That could be totally off the wall. That's why I don't like bringing stuff up like that, because it's, you know, I just feel that the two are separate in a way. So
Yeah,
Louis, you want
I
to come
agree.
back? Oh, and hello to Stephen, who appears to be joining us. Hi, Stephen. Louis, you wanted to come in on what Billy just said.
That's very interesting, that question, because I just read the other day that somebody started to name Tai Chi Chuan as Tai Chi because they wanted to take the martial aspect of it, because students and people interested were trying to step away from the martial arts. So I don't know if the use of Tai Chi, because I think as we are using here, it's more, instead of having to say, it's for simpler communication, but people are using that with the real intent, and one of them apparently can be that of taking out the martial aspect. I know, for instance, I think I told you some last meeting or the one before, that there are people here that in their schools, they don't say they teach Tai Chi Chuan because the students don't immediately drop. So they say they teach Tai Chi, or others say they teach Qigong, to avoid that repulse that people have against Tai Chi Chuan as a martial art. As to the concept of Tai Chi, what you have behind you is Tai Chi 2. Tai Chi 2 is the meta relation of the relation of Tai Chi, of the yin and yang. So, but that's what's in the book.
absolutely.
Sue, yeah. Oh, by the way, Sue, just to let you know, I'm just looking around at everybody that's here. For the next meeting, right, you've got to have most of your head shaved. It's a new rule.
Okay,
Yeah,
right.
it's a new rule.
I'll sort that for you.
Yeah, lovely. Sue, you wanted to come in.
Just talking about Tai Chi and what is the meaning behind it, and I know there's several, but one of the ones that I like is a great ultimate. And I do a lot of work with people with dementia in care homes, and they think they're getting Tai Chi. Of course, that's what they order, that's what they pay for, Tai Chi. And in fact, what I'm really doing is pretty much chair-based Qigong. But, you know, we had a little bit of cloud hands, and I show them a little bit of other stuff. We sometimes go for the needle at the sea bottom, you know, all this. And at the end of the class, I always say to them, for the last hour, you've been doing Tai Chi and Qigong. Qi means life force energy. Gong means to cultivate. Tai Chi means great ultimate. So for the last hour, you have been cultivating your great ultimate life force energy. And it just makes all their eyes sparkle, because they can feel or see or hear that they've done something that actually might help them to be well, be better, live longer, whatever. But it actually, every time I say that little sentence, you can see their eyes sparkle, which is quite nice.
Yeah, I mean I mean, Billy raises a really, it's not a new question, obviously, Billy, as you know, it's been going the rounds for many years. It's, do you teach Tai Chi? Do you teach Tai Chi Chuan? Is Tai Chi Chuan the real Tai Chi? And if you teach Tai Chi without the martial aspects, is what you're doing, you know, oh, you've sold your soul to Satan, kind of thing. I only ever rent mine out. It's a really interesting question, and my only thing to add to it is I'm assuming even in Portugal, you have come across Charlie Brown cartoons, Schultz's, well, who knows? Oh God, what's it called? Snoopy, all that thing. Charlie Brown is a character in a cartoon, and Charlie Brown is often described as wishy-washy Charlie Brown because he vacillates. He can't make his mind up. He's this and he's that, and that's me. I am absolutely wishy-washy Charlie Brown when it comes to Tai Chi. I understand fighting aspects of it to a degree. I understand to a very small degree what I would term the esoteric aspects of it. I understand to a degree the more broad Tai Chi as it is often taught. But my attitude is always, as long as you are not actually doing physical harm to your students, and as long as you are actually not doing mental or spiritual harm to your students, then whatever you call Tai Chi, whatever you do, is pretty much okay in my book. Because the minute you... Oh God, what's the quote when the thing when you name me, you erase me, when you anybody know the quote that's not in the front of my head? When you define a thing, you negate a thing, basically, which is the opposite of the idea that we can only think about things that we have a name for. There is a concept in, I don't know if it's psychology or philosophy, which is oh okay, right, hold on. This is right. You think Robert has finally gone mad? I need to show you why Robert has finally gone completely bonkers. Bear with me a minute. I need to turn the virtual background off. I have a virtual background and I picked up the glass to show you. And what I was going to say was a thing only exists once you name it. There is I think it's a philosophical or a psychological argument that says things do not exist to our brain until we can actually apply a name to.
It's in the Bible.
Is it?
In the Bible, yes.
Oh, right. Okay.
And God created the names. Before the names, there was nothing. There's
right.
no name, there's nothing.
Fine. Okay. So when I did that with my background turned on and nothing was there, that to me was pretty bloody impressive. So there is this question of whether we need to name things for them to exist, or whether
Brian just put it up on the meeting. It's the first verse of the Tao Te Ching. The name that can be named is not the real name.
Right. So there is all of that sort of yin and yang conflict, whatever you want to call it, going on as well. So it's very difficult to know. For me, as I say, if you call what you do Tai Chi, I am pretty much prepared to come along and have a go at it. I did go, and I've talked about this before, to a guy once who started his class with like interpretive dance to music. That was a little bit at that. I'll probably be fine with it today, but when I went, that was a little bit too far out for me. But anyway, sorry, Louis.
I just wanted to add a philosophical, perhaps practical view of Tai Chi. I only started to understood or grasp the concept of Tai Chi when I started really studying the classics and doing two persons tuisho, because you can only understand Tai Chi when there is a system, and when you have this system, you create the relations because you have the system, and that's when you touch. When you do tuisho and you touch somebody, then you create a Tai Chi. The problem with understanding Tai Chi, perhaps, is you cannot imagine Tai Chi if there isn't a system. It's black, it's white, it's dark. There has to be a system. And Tai Chi, as a definition, works when you create that system. And that's when you find the opposing and balancing energies or forms or whatever you call it. And in tuisho, that's immediately, but it's not conscious. Because when you touch somebody, then you create Tai Chi. And everything you do from that point on will be in that relation. Even when you do double weight, it's inside that relation, because if you separate apart, it disappears, the Tai Chi. I don't know if it brings some thoughts.
I have to think on that one, but thank you for it. John, you want to come in? You're muted, John.
Yeah.
We don't lip read.
Okay. This is really going back to what Billy said earlier. He mentioned yin yang and bringing that in. And when I was at the John Ding Academy, part of the system there, once they thought you knew enough of the form to do the form, you learn it again, but every movement had a yin or yang value. So you lift your hands, that would be I can't remember now, yin. You bring them down, it would be yang, and then we do a circle in our form, and that's sort of both. It's like yin and yang, and we had to learn that. I always found it really weird, and I've never carried it through into my teaching, except on occasion when I needed to demonstrate something. In particular, and all my students know about this because I talk about it to them. But I've sort of demonstrated bits and pieces. But the idea here was to reinforce in every student the idea of the yin and yang values of the form movements, the form positions.
It's interesting. I find that interesting because it's a bit like that sounds to me like very similar to my problem with the concept of chi, when teachers say, oh, you have to feel chi. And my argument against that is I don't have to feel oxygen. I don't even have to believe in oxygen to breathe. So therefore, the minute somebody says, oh, you have to apply this construct to something, I become very suspicious of why. If you need to believe in something for it to be true, to me, that means it's not true, because things that are true should be, fire burns, water's wet, whether you believe in it or not. But as a teaching methodology, it may be that John Ding found that was a way to progress students to a place that he wanted them to be. So there may well be, this is me being wishy-washy Charlie Brown again, thinking of both sides, it may be that there was a logical reason for it, or it may have just been a historical reason. Maybe that's how he was taught. I don't know. Sue, you want to come in?
Yeah, I agree with both John and Lewis, to be honest. In fact, unless when I'm teaching, my personal view, not everybody's the same, but it's when I start to show how the applications work is when they get the movements, when they start to feel the energy. I believe it's almost like that aha moment. Oh my God, I get it now. I now know why I'm waving my hand like this. And what John was saying, I agree with the yin and yang in the movements. For me, when I'm teaching, I will use yin and yang quite often. First, I show the feet. Let's have a look what the right foot's doing. Let's have a look what the left foot's doing. Let's have a look what our body's doing. Let's have a look what the right arm's doing, what the left arm's doing. Then let's do it all together. Yeah, well, it's like, rubbing your belly and patting your head, isn't it? It's difficult. So I will use the yin and the yang on some of the movements to say, yeah, okay, your right hand's going up, your left hand's going down. White crane spreads its wings, so that they're getting the yin and the yang. It's an opposite. But then it does become a little bit difficult when hands are doing different things, and they're going, well, that's not actually opposite. but at least it tries to get that you know, when one arm's doing one thing, the other arm's doing another, even though the one arm might be doing something massive and the other one's something smaller, they are both moving. One's not just sat. And for me, that's when you start to see that, or feel, or know, or trust that energy is flowing around your body.
It's a philosophical term to explain something. It explains the relation. So you have a system, you define the system, you define that there are two persons, you define there are two arms, one is going in one direction and the other is in another position, and you use the Tai Chi to explain the relation, because then you can go in and give the four yin and yang relations. One extracts, one transforms in the other, and all that thing. But if you don't create, if you don't find that the limits of that system, you cannot explain the yin and yang relation, because there is nothing there, because there is no limit. The Tao has no limit, so there is no yin yang until there is Tai Chi.
Mm.
The other thing, of course, and that's where the yin yang, I can never remember what it's called, but the yin yang symbol, that's where it falls down from a Western perspective, which is most Westerners look at that symbol. I'm looking at the one on Billy's, behind Billy. Most of us look at that symbol and we see it as it is when it's printed, as a static symbol. It is never ever meant to be a static symbol. It is meant to be continually moving and changing, which comes back to the question about whether we're changing. And so yes, I mean, the only time not the only time, but one of the main times when I explicitly explain yin and yang is if I'm explaining the reason why when you rest the hands on the dantian, you have one hand over the other if you're a man and the other hand over the other if you're a woman, because the only decent explanation I was ever given for that, having had instructors that go, oh, if you're a man, it must be right hand on top. And then you have another instructor who says, oh, if you're a man, it must be the left hand on top. And you say, why? And they say, well, because it is. And I finally trained with a Chinese master who gave an explanation in terms of yin and yang that may or may not be true, but it's a coherent explanation that makes sense. So I'll mention yin and yang for that. Sorry, I'm going to shut up. Billy, you want to come in, I can see, and then you, John.
Yeah, I don't know how to put the little yellow hands up, so I just raised my hand.
He's old school.
Us Americans, we walk with a different beat, believe me. Just anyway, so here I go again, going back to something else that's probably going to be. We talk about yin and yang, and again, I'm looking at it. You know, we're talking about form again. I'm still don't understand that. In our organ systems, we have what we call the yin and yang nature. We have the heart, you know, the kidney,
small intestine,
they're all associated
lungs, large intestine,
with the yin and yang association. And yet it must be a form of some sort of energy, but we're not sensing those inside our body unless something happens. So that means to me that the energy is flowing, and you don't have to know that it's flowing, because if you didn't know that you had those organ systems flowing right, you wouldn't live. So energy has to be silent too. It just can't be form, you know, as we know it. And so I'm going back to that again.
And that's what we call meditation.
Exactly, and that's what, you know, we talk about the diagram back there. It's not just about movement. It's about no movement. It's about where did it come from? That you say there's no Tai Chi unless there's yin and yang, but Master Joe used to talk about, you know, Wu Chi being the ultimate form of nothingness, but yet something had to be there for it to become this. So that's where my mind goes. That's where I've been leading myself since I've been starting this with Master Joe back in 1992, whatever that was. I never was attached to the form as much as I was attached to what it meant and what it felt like, and what was the purpose of it? What was the real purpose of this besides martial art? So the Tai Chi diagram is martial art, it's meditation, it's philosophy, it's all the things that make that thing spin. Okay, so
It's life.
I always look at Tai. That's why I say I look at Tai Chi in a different way. I do. Not that it's the right way, because like as my teacher used to say to me, he told me there's no really right way, no wrong way. There's only your way. So I kind of like that. Because that meant everybody. When we used to do form as a group, everybody would look a little different if they showed it by themselves, but as a unit, they would look the same because you couldn't tell the differentials of everybody's flow. So philosophy to me is very important. Lao Tzu talks about all these. He has those readings that he has. You just read that one by Brian there. But I sense yin and yang energy in those words. I don't, the fact that, every reading in Lao Tzu has a yin and yang aspect to it in some way. And to try to understand that philosophy of it, it has to be understood. As my teacher used to say, you have to bring it back to a form of energy. You can't use, you can use yin, you can use yang, but it's already polluted. Combine them to one thing, energy. And then now, where do you go from there? How do you talk the language of nature, which is all energy? Okay, you have to study nature. Okay, so where did Tai Chi come from? Most likely nature. I mean, when the universe became what it came, nobody knew about anything about Tai Chi until it got developed. So, but it was out there. It was out there. So again, that's me going backwards, not forward. I think. Sorry about that, guys.
No, that's
No,
fine.
that's great.
Fine, Billy. John, you've got your hand up, and then Louis. John.
Yeah. Am I unmuted? Yes. I was only going to say you going back a bit. You just now mentioned right hand over left, left hand over right, male, female. Have you ever tested that as a martial position?
Okay, as a martial position, as a martial position, I would always, if I'm teaching that from a martial arts point of view, I would always teach non-dominant hand. So if I'm right-handed, so I'm going to stand up, right? I would always teach left hand over right if I'm doing it martially, because if I'm doing it martially, then that lets me just put a little bit of spring force, a little gentle activation into the muscles, which will increase speed. So that's the only, I'm not saying there aren't other martial applications. That's the only one I know of that. What were you getting at, John?
I wasn't suggesting that there was an actual application. I've just lost you, haven't I? Oh.
No, I'm here. You're here. We're all
okay.
here.
I can't see you. I just lost vision. I'll see if I can find it. But oh, there we are. Okay, I'm back. This is not testing it actually as a martial position, but when we practice in the class, we teach, as Sue alluded to this earlier, we teach people what the move means, and we test it to get structure right and make sure they're not using too much physicality. So I play around with this because I didn't know for years what it amounted to. But if you stand with that over your tantien and your right hand over, and somebody puts just a little bit of pressure in, there's no problem holding it. You will stand there. But if you swap over and show your feminine side, so put your left hand on top, you'll fall backwards. And it really takes very little pressure. So I play around this just to show new students, but it's quite interesting. I recommend having a look. but it's only, you know, we're not sort of throwing our muscles into this. It's just a bit of gentle pressure, which is why I test form, the form, just enough. I was always told that you start with a touch, and you just gradually increase how much you're pushing, so the student can absorb it and understand from both sides what's going on, because it's a complete two-way street. That sort of thing. But no, I didn't know for years and years and years, and then one day, John had us test it, and it's the difference does make.
That's interesting. I'll have to give that a go. Louis, you wanted to come in.
Yeah, I just wanted. I think that what John is describing is part of what Billy was also talking about, which is we do have things happening in our body that we don't feel, and there are people that can be trained and are trained to feel the organs and to feel the energy moving, not only for therapeutical, but even just for introspection type of work. So there is a level of sensitivity in relation to our understanding of what happens around us and what happens inside of us that can be brought up by training. As to the Tai Chi, it's just a construct to explain the nature. So it's always nature. It has always been the nature. It's the way to understand the changes and to make some sense out of repetitive cycle of the nature. And that's why it developed to the 6 hexagram, 64, because 2 were not enough to explain many of the events that were being witnessed during the year, and mostly in the sky. The astronomers in ancient China could not explain everything only with 2, so they had to develop more variations. There you have the 5 elements, and then you have the 64 hexagrams, just to explain with a little bit of this and a little bit of that, you have a thunder. With a little bit of this and a little bit of that, we have rains. With a little bit of this and a little bit of that, and it goes on and goes on and goes on. I've heard, but I never saw it written, but I've read somewhere that at the beginning, actually, there were 2 conflicting theories. This one that we have is the one that became popular, but there was another theory that went in the opposite direction. Instead of coming in the direction of dividing, it was in the direction of the unifying. But it wasn't so popular, so it was dropped out in history. But I don't know who the authors would be or whatever.
John, you want to come in?
I only wanted to come in to say great forum. Thoroughly enjoyed it, but I do have to go now. So thank you, everybody. Bye.
Me too. I have to.
Okay, in that case, I think, bye-bye, John, bye-bye, Louis.
Bye.
I think we'll close down